Hello guys, today I'm going to talk about JavaScript concept, a little one I would like to share with you, which is local storage. Okay, I'm NeoDev, let's grow together and let's get started. Alright then, what is the Web Store API? Well, the Web Store API is a set of mechanisms that enable browsers to store key value pairs. The key value pairs represent store objects. However, those data are always string. The Web Store API consists of two mechanisms, which is session storage and local storage. But what is the difference between session storage and local storage? Well, the data stored in session storage is cleared when the page is closed. Data stored in local storage doesn't expire. That's the difference. But here we're going to focus only in the local storage in JavaScript. Okay, so let's jump into our VS Code. Hello guys, I'm back. So inside of my VS Code, I just created an index.html and main.js file. And for the style, just to make it, a dark mode, because I want you to protect your eyes. Alright, and I just create a form with the input, with ID of entry, and a body type of submit, h1, and empty another list. Alright, so now remember, local storage is a property that allows JavaScript sites and applications to save key value pairs in a web browser with no expiration date. This means that data is stored in the browser will persist even after the browser window is closed. Alright, so if we just jump into our main.js, which is already linked to our index.html, first I would like you to share the local storage. So the local storage mechanism is available via the window.localStorage, like so. If I just console.log window.localStorage, like that property. But however, since the window object is global, you don't need explicitly to specify the window object, so we can get rid of that like this. And initially this console.log will return an object with the property of length with the value of 0. Alright, now guys, let's do some DOM manipulation, because I need to get with my form, with my entry, and this is the input, and finally my inner release. Why? Because initially I want to give you my form the listener of submit. Here I'm going to have the event object, so we can prevent the default value of a form when it's submitted. Alright, so that's the first step. Now second, every time I get a value from the form when it's submitted, I want to put a list item inside of my empty under list. So we will basically say let li equal to document that create element, where are you, right there, and in this case is going to be naturally the list item li. Then I want to inject my text content, or just the text, with the value the input has. In this case we just need to say entry, which is my input, that value, and that's the way we can get the value from my input after naturally the form is submit. And finally I want my inner list, and I want to append that list item that has been just created. Okay, so after you do that, I need to save this data inside of my local storage, which initially is empty. We go right here, and within application my local storage is empty. So the way we can add an item inside of our local storage is by just saying local storage, that set item. Remember that I told you that they store key value pairs, so my first argument here should be the key. I'm going to call it list. Next, I need the value that I will store, so in this case it's going to be entry that value. Alright, so this is my form, so let's give it a whirl, item 1, submit, and there you go. If you can see, we have our item right there, the key list, and the value got the value item 1. Alright, But what happens if we try to add another one? So let's go with yada yada and submit, and boom, it override my previous value from my local storage. So how do we puzzle out this? Well, we need to give to our local storage unique key. So in order to do that, let me just create a count, starts from 0, and I want to add a validation here, just a little one. So if my entry, that value exists, which means that it's not empty, my input, I just need to trigger the following code, which is everything actually, okay? Just to make sure that my value is not empty in order to run this piece of code. Alright then. Now after that, let me comment this out. I will create another function that I'm going to call add to ls, to local storage, naturally. And here I'm going to pass my text value, right, from my input. And finally, after you send the information, I want to clean that input. So here, just going to say entry, that value should be equal to null, just to clear my input. All right, after you submit. Then naturally, we need to create that function. So in order to show you guys, so add to ls, here going to have my text, which is coming from my input. And here I'm going to say, first of all, I need to add to my count 1. Then we need to say the following, which is going to be pretty much the same. However, here I'm going to use what backticks, because I'm going to call it item hyphen and my god, okay, item hyphen and whatever the value of my currently is. So count. I call it count, right? Yes, count. And having said that, instead of entering that value, we are passing the text, so I need to pass my second argument, the text. Okay guys, let's just clean this up. Let's give it a whirl, item 1, okay. And what happened if I go with the item, I don't know, Albert, and there you go. You can add as many as you want, and that's great. However, what happens if we reload the page? Well, my content, my DOM content vanishes. However, my local storage remains the same. They still have the same 3 items. All right. So our second step naturally is to get that data back to our view inside of our browser. So we need to say the following. First, let me just grab this function or create this function that I'm going to call naturally get ls, forget local storage, run that function, and here just going to console.log my local storage. So local storage in order to get my ls. Let me just comment this out. Sorry, or comment. And then, okay, as you can see, I'm able to see my local storage, which is an object. I have this key and value pairs, as you've seen, and of course with my lane property. This is an object, so the local storage is an object. It's returning all the elements that I have currently inside of my local storage. Great. Now, inside of get ls, I'm going to grab, this is my first version. I'm going to grab the keys from that object, and the way we can do that is by saying object, because remember, local storage is an object, as you've seen right here, is an object that keys, because I want to get my keys from where? From my local storage, naturally. This method is returning an array, so I'm going to store it in a const called keys. It should be equals to that. So let me just console.log those keys in order for you guys to see it. And there you go. I have an array with this key as a string. Okay. Next, I need to loop through each key. So keys that for each, which each singular key, I need to do the following. First, I need to create and inject that information like so. Create an li, naturally, so my text content will be here. I'm going to say local storage that get item, and here inside of this parenthesis as an argument I need the key, which is, let me show you, If I want the value of my item number 1, I need to inject the key. So here I just pass in the parameter key. Okay, this key is going to be item -1, so I'm getting actually the text item 1, and for item 2 it's going to be Albert, item 3 is going to be item with that number. Okay, finally I'm going to append that to my another list, and right now you should be able to see my list back, and there you go. If I refresh, we'll still having the same values. Okay, that's great. That is my first version. My second version is pretty much almost the same, so let me just grab the second version of how we can do this. Let me just copy, paste, remove, or just comment this, and here instead of keys I'm going to target my values, because remember my local storage, key values pairs, and now I'm going to target my values right away. So since I already have my values here, I need to say just values. This is returning an array. If I hit with values, and this is my array, and instead of using local storage that get item right here, I'm just going to say, first of all, need to change this because I'm looping the values. So each val should be a text, and I just injecting that text inside of my list item. So if we go back, and there you go. 2 ways that you can achieve that. All right. Finally, let's go back inside of my index HTML, and well, I already have it here, my ID, my button with the ID of clear. So in order to clear the whole local storage, all of the data, I just need to first down manipulation, clear, call it create button, document get element by ID, clear. This is my button, and I'm going to give it a listener. So let me grab what I have here. So this is going to be my listener, comma, and my callback function, which is an arrow function. Okay, and inside of this, first of all, let's remove the local storage by saying just local storage that clear, and we remove every single data that is inside of our local storage. And I need to remove this from my view. In order to do that, just need to target my another list, say inner HTML back to null, to say just empty that. So fingers crossed, let's go within application now. If I hit clear, all the data. All right guys, if you've seen, we just seen the basics of the local storage, 3 methods, and I want to remark that the thing is that we need to establish each item by a unique ID, but we can do it by using arrays actually. So in order to show you that, let me just create another, I don't know, abc.js. I'm pretty bad with the names. Let me just comment this and attach that script tag. So abc for our new method of local storage. Again, I just need down manipulation. Just gonna grab those, gonna paste, and then I need my form submit. So let me grab everything just to not waste time and paste. Now the changes here are going to be the following. First, I need to establish a variable. So let val should be equals to entry that value. I want to store the input value with the val variable. All right. Now here, since I'm going to repeat this, let me just grab it. Let's create a function first. I'm going to call it create list for list items. This is going to receive a text, and here just going to grab this little piece of code. Just gonna grab this, paste, and text. Just copy and paste. Okay, going to do this as a separate function, and naturally I need to call that right here. So create list, going to pass my value initially. Let's just remove that for now, and everything looks the same. Yeah, pretty much the same. So let's try it. If I go here, hit submit, there you go, and there you go. Okay, everything is working. Now the local storage. First, I'm going to create a variable called items. So let items in this case is going to be an empty array. All right, now here I need to create a new variable. I'm going to call let id. All right, I'm going to use the new date object. I need to get the time and then turn this into a string, so to string. Okay, because this should be a number and then turning into a string. Now here to add to local storage, I'm going to pass two arguments. First the ID and then the value. Why? Because inside of my local storage, in this case, I'm going to use an array of objects. Each object we have the property of ID and the value itself. All right, now just beneath that, let's create that function right away. So we will say function add to local storage, two parameters, correct? So first of all was the ID and then the value. And again, as I told you, I'm going to store this data as an array of objects. So let me create my object. It's going to be, and I'm going to have the property of the ID and the value. And don't worry about that expression, it's just MyScript 6 that pretty much is ID that colon ID comma val colon comma. It's pretty much the same. It's just MyScript 6 of 2015. All right then. Now since I already have my items right here, this object I need to insert to my array. So in order to do that, we just need to say items, because it's my array, push who my object, because every time I'm injecting new text, I'm calling this action and also this action and passing that value, text value, injecting that and saving that inside of my array. Okay, so after you do that, then we need to store it to our local storage. As we did before, we just need to say local storage that set item, because we're going to store, and remember key value pairs. First my key, I'm going to call it just list, like that, and then I'm going to send my array, remember, because I'm going to send an array. However, local storage only supports a string type, so this is an array. In order to turn that into a string, we just need to say JSON that stringify, because this is an object, and that's the way we can, you know, stringify our array. Okay, and right away let's do the clear button. So let me grab what I have here just to clear my local storage and empty my unordered list, just to, you know, right away just copy and paste. Cleaning the local storage and don't viewer. Okay, all right then, so let's give it a whirl. Item 2, there you go. This is an array of objects. What if I add another one? Item 1, let's go with Albert, order the list. You see, I'm getting an array of objects, and that's great. Now what happens if I refresh the page? Okay, I'm still having my local storage naturally, because that's what it does, but on my view I'm not getting anything. Why? Because we didn't get anything yet from our local storage. There is nothing there in our code, so we need to get our local storage. For now, let's pretend that we have data, because let me just delete everything. Pretend that we have data, and above everything, just right here, let's go and say the following. I'm going to use the window global object and then add a listener, and then again, well, actually first I'm going to use the DOM content loaded, and then going to call a callback function that I'm going to call get items. All right, naturally I need to create that function, so just right here, so get items with no params. I need to get my local storage, so local storage that get item and the key. What was the key that I called, or that I just created? Was list, so I just need to call that list. All right, so again, this is a string. Now I'm returning a string, so in order to have an actually array, I need to parse that. So json.parse in order to get my array, actually not a string, and I need to store this into a variable called items. Okay, after that, after I'm getting my local storage, I need to show them inside of my view. So in order to do that, first of all, I need to loop through them. So items that for each so each item I will have a callback function. Who am I going to call? Well, the function that we already created, which is create list items. So just saying create list items, but remember that my item, they were an object. Remember, it was a, my god, sorry, it was the ID of whatever and then my value of whatever. So each item is an object, so I just need the value. So here I'm going to pass the item that val, because that's the property that I set when I created my object. Okay, so once I pass this through this this function is going to append that inside of my view of my another list. I hope it makes sense. So let's refresh. Hope I don't got any error, and indeed I do. Why? Let me show you why. Because if I go and say console.log my items, you will see that we'll have the value of null, and naturally it says uncode type error cannot read properties of null for each. So when I try to get my local storage by using this, where are you? Yes, this method of get items, naturally, I can if the local storage is empty. But how can we know if it's empty or not? Or it should be always with certain data, but that's not how it works, right? So in order to do that, we just need to create a new function. I'm going to call, let me show you, function get ls. Pretty straightforward. So get ls is for getting my list items. First of all, I need to return, because I'm going to return my array. So first I need to call my local storage that get item, and I call it, where are you, list. But here's the deal. I'm going to use the ternary operator for this, because I'm going to ask myself, well, actually JavaScript, local storage get items exist? If does, please return that local storage. So naturally I need to parse that to, because this is actually a string, I need to parse that into an object, which is an array. Otherwise, just return an empty array, like so. All right. So then below this get items, yes, I'm calling the get items list, but instead of this part, I need to change this, because I need to call this function now, because this function is going to return either the local storage if it has some elements, or just an empty array, which is already an object. So I just need to say get ls for this one, colon, and there you go. I don't have any errors. So if I go back again, item 1, item 2, sorry, and Albert, let's refresh, and there you go. We are getting our local storage from this console.log line 13, and of course I have all my values should be displayed at the moment. There you go, and that's great. However, we have a final bug. If I try to add something else and something else and I refresh, those items are vanished. But why? Because the problem is inside of this add to ls function. So in order to solve that little bug, we need first of all to get rid of my list items array, initial array. So I just comment that out, and then inside of my add to local storage function, I just need to say the following: let items, and that items, where are they come from? Well, my get local storage, because remember that local storage is either returning my actually local storage or just an empty array, which is an object. So in that case, let's try it again. Let's clear everything back to 0. Item 1, item 2, refresh. There you go. Now let's go with Albert and order list. submit, clear. I'm sorry, don't get scared. It's just because I hit the clear button. That's it. Okay, let's go again. And there you go. This kind of mistake, but don't worry, it's still working. Because on your end, you will be able that it's still working, okay? So that was my second option. As you've seen, if you can compare, both of them are working, but this is not complete yet. This is fully complete because many videos that deals with local storage, and even in your own projects, with your own projects, you will be able to see that the best way to store our data inside our local storage is by using arrays like this. Where are you? Okay, yeah, this one. You need to use only one key and to store everything inside of just one single array. All right. So guys, in a nutshell, Web Storage API, we have 3 points: store key value pairs, yes, string type, do not forget that, 2 mechanisms, session store and local storage. So the main difference is that local storage, the data doesn't expire, okay?
Oh, hello. Why are you looking at me? Take a reason or something. And do me a favor, if you like, and where is the CRUD yet? See you in the next one.